Thank you so much for watching today's episode of Mindset Matters. I'm going to be talking about addictions and why trying to stop something cold turkey or say no to that piece of chocolate or cake that you want is the worst thing that you can do to actually help you overcome that addiction or rewire a new habit in your brain. Before I get into that, let me introduce myself. My name is Coach Carissa, and I'm a mental and emotional health coach. I specialize in fear on the brain and helping you rewire your mind with better thoughts, habits, and emotions so that you can go after the things you want in life with better confidence and faith. So today we're talking specifically about addictions and how addictions are different from habits. So a habit is really anything that every time we do something repetitively, our unconscious mind creates a habit. And how that's done is we have something called neurological networks inside our mind. And those are connected to emotions, they're connected to your body, they're connected to sensory, they're connected to your sight. And these neurological networks get reinforced and strengthened every time that we think, say, or do something repetitively, including feeling something. So if you feel a very strong emotion, that will also strengthen the neurological network. Now, most of the time, and actually, if to give you a visual of this, if you're not sure, I want you to imagine a light switch and the inner workings of a light switch, where the light switch will travel the current, the electrical current, when you flip on a light switch, is going to travel along the strongest pathway. And so what they do, I think, in electrical is they'll they'll strengthen that pathway by coating it in like a nylon sheathing or something like that. And that's going to ensure that the current travels through the fastest pathway. Now, if there's two pathways, the current will choose the one that's the strongest, and it will go through that pathway. So if we have something that we've been saying, like maybe we say yes a lot, then every time you flip on that light switch or every time you're given an opportunity to say yes, your habit is going to be to say yes because that's your strongest pathway. And as soon as you've gotten that external reinforcement for you to react, then it's going to flip on the light switch and you're going to react in the same way that you usually do. Occasionally, we can override this in the moment, but most of the things that we do are very unconscious. So that's a habit. Now, the addictions actually differ from a habit, and I think this is what a lot of people might not fully understand. So I went through this a lot trying to overcome different habits of mine, like quitting smoking. So addiction is very different from a habit in the sense that it's emotionally driven. Not just emotionally driven, I should say. It's emotionally driven, and it's also driven by the reward or pleasure systems in our brain. So your brain actively avoids pain, and it seeks out pleasure or reward systems. So when we have something that we have as a habit, and it gives us that pleasure feedback loop, or it gives us some sort of reward, we'll tend to make that an addiction. So sugar has a really high level for addiction, so does smoking, anything like that. And what happens is anytime we have that, the brain gets a reward, and we're going to just strengthen that neurological network. Now, what's different is because we can take this into so many areas of our lives. For example, if you have stress and you've equated stress relief to smoking, and then maybe you've also linked that to frustrating conversations with your partner or driving the car or after a meal, all these things are going to get linked together until you have a network built up of thousands of different neurological networks. So habits can be a lot smaller neurological networks. They become easier to break than an addiction, because with an addiction, you're actually rewiring that brain's feedback response for pleasure. So it's very different. So what happens when we tell ourselves we can't have something is we're actually going against that pleasure system in our brain. And in doing so, we're increasing our chances of falling off the wagon and going right back to that old habit. This is what a lot of people don't understand. So anytime that you tell yourself, I can't have something, your brain looks at that like an attack on your personal identity. and it assumes that you're trying to kill it, and it will actually, so that's outside of the comfort zone of your normal. So your brain will assume that we're trying to change things. In essence, we're trying to kill it or change your identity. So it will send out reinforcements such as cravings, and it will send out deep cravings so that it will pull you right back in. Have you ever noticed when you've tried to stop something that your cravings for that immediately intensified? When you told yourself no, you couldn't have something or do something, that you automatically wanted it that much more? This is why. Because your brain is actually acting against you to try to get you to go back into that old habit zone. This is very common. It happens over and over and over again. And when you don't understand the inner workings of your brain, you're going to unconsciously you're going to be pushing against your brain, which in the end, your brain's going to end up winning most of the time. So what we want to do is start getting your brain to work for you in a way that's very easy, that's not setting off this message to your brain that you're trying to kill its identity. So where does this identity thing come from? Have you ever noticed that somebody who, we think that the brain is there to keep our body to help our body survive, right? Have you ever noticed somebody with an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction, and they're very near death very frequently? Well, if it was the brain's main prerogative to keep your physical body safe, then wouldn't it make sense that it wouldn't have you craving these different things? That's because your brain's main goal is to actually keep your identity safe. Your perceived identity safe, who you think you are, how you think the world works. This is really powerful. What this means is that the reality is you can be anything, you can have anything, you can do most anything, I should say. And the only thing that's keeping you stuck in an addiction or a habit or where you are is this perceived sense of identity. And when we try to change, we go against our brain's natural systems. We put up it puts up a defense wall, and then it starts to try to get us back into our comfort zones because it feels like we're trying to kill it. This is what happens in addiction. To stop an addiction, to actually start changing an addiction, we need to change our approach and get our brains to start working for us. There's actually a very easy way that you can do this where we're not activating that brain's immediate response system so that it's not going to come back with all these cravings. You can still do an action, and while you're rewiring your brain with a new thought, emotion, and belief system, to the point where all of a sudden you just don't want it like you did, and you're naturally able to quit. I know it sounds unbelievable, and I know it sounds like this might not be as easy, but it really is as easy as it sounds. I have actually including, for everybody who's watching this video, I'm including a link to a special guide to help you overcome an addiction that you have in your life, and to let you know the process so you can start to get your mind working with you and not against you. If there's not a link in this video, depending on which platform it is that takes you to that free guide, you can also send me an email to admin@coachcarissa.com. You can view me at Coach Carissa Mindset Matters on Facebook and Instagram, or follow my channel on YouTube and get your free guide now. This is big stuff, can help you change habits and addictions. I'm excited to help you on that journey. Have a wonderful day, and remember, mindset matters.